Welcome to 3D from Nothing, powered by Metalmite, the show where you will learn all about 3D printing and additive technology. I'm your host, Tom Gendich. Metalmite's a full-service CNC machine shop, specializes in 5 and 6 axis machining, CNC grinding, wire EDM, and 3D printing. We're a 50-year-old company started by my father, Michael Gendich the Third. I took over as CEO in 2009, and I'm continuing the manufacturing legacy today as a third-generation owner. In these programs, you'll learn what kinds of printers are out there, what kinds of material you can print, who's using these printers, what kinds of things you should be looking at printing, as well as hearing from experts in the field through interviews that we'll be conducting. And you can always go to our website, 3dfromnothing.com, and get free giveaways, learn more about what we're doing, where the name comes from, which is my father, who said, at some point, we'll make parts out of nothing. And we're doing just that today with 3D printing and additive technology. Welcome to our third episode of 3D from Nothing, powered by Metalmite. We're so excited to have a special guest with us today, who is indeed an industry specialist in additive technology and 3D printing. Brandon Crain has more than 15 years of in-depth technical, hands-on experience in traditional subtractive machining. He's worked his entire career as a team member of a growing, successful family running waterjet cutting and machining service company. Brandon has experience in all areas of a thriving small business, including shipping and receiving, purchasing, sales, quality management, and business management. His career began in abrasive waterjet operation and programming. After a few years of working mostly in two-dimensional plate cutting, he moved into a managing role for CNC machining services, and from there assumed the position of general manager of the company. Understanding and experiencing the 15 years of busted knuckles, broken tools, scraped parts, he gained interest in the growing 3D metal printing, the DMLS, direct metal laser sintering industry. Recognizing the capability of additive manufacturing technology and seeing the opportunity to participate in the next industrial revolution, Brandon and his wife Kristi established Texas Metal Printing LLC in 2015 to offer access to 3D metal printing technologies. Brandon also helped start Nine Fruits Investment, where he consults in manufacturing, real estate, and investing with like-minded professionals who are striving for excellence in business, spreading the gospel while they work, and providing growth for their families and investors. Brandon, hey, I want to welcome you to our show, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Tom. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. Brandon, I know you're a busy guy. I want to be sensitive to your time. I wondered if we could start by having a quick walkthrough of your history. Obviously, just read your bio there, which is on your LinkedIn profile. But can you tell us a little bit more about that start that you've had?
Yeah, just as briefly as I can, it was several years ago now, looking back. Junior in high school, out as a floor sweeper, ditch digger, all things dirty and filthy that nobody gets to do in the summertime. That got designated to me. And it was a very small family run business. It was about 5 employees at the time back in 1990. There was a new waterjet machine. So anyway, learned how to run that. Got to be an operator for a little while, then stepped out of the shop floor, got into estimating and sales, starting interacting with customers, vendors, and all of that stuff. And over the course of about 10 years, we had grown from about 5 employees to 15 or so, started adding in some machining capability.
So it sounds like the water jet itself was an upgrade for that facility. So prior to that, how were they getting their plates cut, or how were they milling them? Or
it was a relatively new company, and so a lot of the plate cutting was outsourced. As owner of the company, my uncle, he was spending a lot of money every month to these vendors for plate burning, plate cutting. A lot of times it was turnkey, but that's all that needed to be done. And then we took one machine and got up to 4 machines over the course of 10 years, just paying as we went. Small organic growth, very little debt. But yeah, that was that. So there was a demand, it was growing. But that was when he started 5 machines in Houston. There's probably 500, could be 5,000 in Houston today. I couldn't even tell you. It's just a technology that just ramped up. The benefits of it were obvious.
So I think that's a good point. I think we're gonna connect that to 3D printing in a minute. But so a new technology came in, and as all of us shop owners do, we look at the return on investment or the ROI calculation. So he was obviously spending a lot of money at other places. He saw the value of bringing something in-house, Obviously, these water jet machines are many thousands of dollars, right? Depending on how large. I know there's some that are $500,000, but he did some calculation, brought one in, and you said within a relatively short period of time, he had four. And so obviously,
I mean, we went from 1 to 2 within 24 months. As soon as you got one, it was like, it wasn't enough. There's a lot of maintenance with them too. If you have downtime on one, you need to have a backup machine or whatever. But we ran 2 for probably 3 or 4 years. And then it was like, we need something bigger. So then we got the bigger one 5 or 6 years in. And we went even bigger than that year 8 or so from me being there. So it just scaled with demand.
It's interesting as we're sitting here talking about the additive addition to our industry. And I know I cut you off a little short. You'll make that leap here in a minute, but I wanted to just draw that string of connection to even something as simple for you and I, a water jet or a plasma cutter for cutting plate. It's a value add, and you bring it in house, and you're not relying on people outside anymore. But anyway, so you guys got that. You were obviously the one that trained and learned it, and then you moved on. And then in your bio, it says you went on to CNC machining. So can you talk a little bit about the CNC machining side of it?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, the plate cutting was 2-dimensional, and we did have, we got customers that we were servicing well, giving them great service on the 2D plate stuff, but we would send them parts that still needed to be tapped. They needed to be countersunk. They needed a bevel, some sort of machining. So now we're giving a turnkey. You give us a PO, we give you a finished part type operation, and just hammered on service. Built that reputation up, got a good relationship going with our customers, grew the customer base, got more customers. Just very organic growth. No big, huge cash infusion or anything like that. Customer service was a differentiator for sure. When we built up the reputation, they started sending us straight machining components. So when we got our first CNC, water jetting was around 80% of our revenue. And then the finishing part was probably 10% of our revenue. And so that started to shift over time. Waterjet became more competitive, right? A lot more machines in town. So we may have started reducing our growth. We still were growing, but slower growth on the waterjet side. But our CNC, the quality and delivery for CNC machine was just boring. Nobody was doing what they said they would do. Stuff would come in wrong. And we found a unique team of people that we could get it done. And so the machine ramped up to where by the year 20, whenever I left there, 2017, 18, it's 50-50 machining versus waterjet. The revenue really came up on the machining side, and it was just fun to see that happen.
And then it sounds like additive manufacturing came into the picture. So what kind of drew you into that? What kind of parts were you looking at where you had to look into additive?
10 or 12 years ago. So the very first exposure I got to 3D metal printing, it was a bronze kind of mixture, kind of hybrid with this binding agent. And you had to print it in this green state. And then you would take it from the green state, go put it in an oven, and then bake it. And then you got your part. Even if it's the greatest thing on the world, engineers are going to have to get familiar with it. There's going to be a learning curve. I really think it's cool. It's just not ready. And so I went on about my business. And then we had this really challenging part. And this is where everything changed for me. It was 4 pieces they needed. It was about the size of my hand. And they needed them Monday delivered. It was 17-4 stainless. And it had this weird curvature thing. We were going to run it on a 4th axis. And we got the order like on Thursday night. So we had to expedite the material because we didn't have it, rush it in here right now. Had to pick out tooling, order it overnight, get it in here for Saturday. Had to start programming immediately, start thinking about fixturing immediately, and then schedule the guys to show up on Saturday to run the job. And then hope that everything went right between Saturday and Sunday so we could deliver the parts on Monday. And we'd done this type of thing before, rush job, CNC, whatever, but this was a challenging part. The fixturing wasn't right, the program wasn't right, something just challenge after challenge, like, man. And then Saturday, one of the operators didn't show up. I was like, we're never going to get this job done. So I had a contract programmer at the time, and he had a plastic 3D printing machine at home. And when he came through the door on, I think it was Sunday, he put this plastic representation of what we were trying to make in my hand. But you know what would be really cool? If we would have printed this in stainless, start Googling, these are materials I recognize. Inconel, 17-4, 316 stainless, titanium. Very interesting. I want one. How much is that? You can't not have one of these machines if you've been in a machine shop for 20 years. I don't understand if you have any energy at all, you're like, man, this is the coolest thing. And then you see the price tag and you're like, never mind. that thing's expensive. But okay, we'll just, like you do with anything else, sometimes you start buying it out, right? We'll buy some for a while, make sure there's demand. And then once there's enough demand, we'll buy a machine because then we'll know it's proven, like we did with the waterjet machines. You're spending so much with the vendors, and then it makes sense to bring it in-house. So we'll try that. Nobody was offering it as a service. Everybody that was buying these machines were doing their own in-house thing and developing their own technology. And so there were no service bureaus. And my whole career at this point, now 15, 16 years in, I'm good at that. I know how to service people. I know how to take a piece of equipment that's relatively new technology and do something with it to where people will buy it. And so I knew I wanted a machine. I was really excited about its ability. So why don't we buy it? Talk to my wife, like, we got this money, let's pray on that. Man, we did. We're people of faith. We pray about big decisions. We don't pray enough about the small ones like we probably should. But over a period of time, we went through the SBA loan process. There were a lot of hurdles, a lot of roadblocks, where we said, Lord, if this isn't supposed to be, just let us know this isn't going to happen. But it would always go to the next phase and go to the next phase. It took about 3 years from back of the napkin, can we do it, to signing on the line and taking delivery of $500,000 machine at the time for me and my wife.
And that was the birth of Texas Metal Printing, LLC?
Yep.
Excellent. Wow.
And it was New Year's Eve 2014, we wrote the PO for that first printer.
New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I ran the machine on nights and weekends, maintained my day job.
So you kept the day job. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, told my employer, let me know. But I just want to tell you first, because I'm signing the loan next week. They're going to know. They want to know if I have a job or not. So
excellent.
Excellent. So did that for 3 years, nights and weekends only. Tried to get sales where I could, but that's hard during after hours and stuff. And over those 3 years, we had 2 children. So we went from 0 to 2. And by year 3, it became abundantly clear that I needed to leave my day job and just really go all in on metal printing and make a go of it. And so
that's awesome.
That's what we did. We did
amazing.
That.
Quite the leap of faith.
Yeah. It's one of those places where you wake up and it was April 1st, April Fool's Day. And the first day I woke up without a job, I was my own guy. And it's a neat, different feeling, full of joy and terror